Recorded.
Hello, how are you? This is Rudy Lozano, broker for PRG Platinum. Thank you for joining us today. I want to give you a quick recap of what has happened this week. We have already been in the last 6 to 8 weeks addressing the NAR settlement. And then we had talked about changes that would need to happen at the national level as well as the state level. So um, as far as compensation, as well as the roles that the realtors would play on any transaction. As you know, that many states are looking to the state of Texas for guidance on how to conduct business, because not everybody had buyer's agency available to them in their respective states. It's always been the philosophy that if you can do real estate in Texas, you can do real estate in anywhere in the country. Because if there is a state that is consumer friendly and it's all about the compliance, we really do have our stuff together in Texas in many aspects. So, so what ends up happening is that people nationwide, statewide, uh, have been working together, to try to figure out the compliance piece and how it all will manifest to how it will impact your business, right? So we have to comply. We have till August 17th. I decided to take on um, the training sooner than later. Um, it just needed to happen, and I definitely want to prepare you guys to ensure that you guys have, the tools, the skills, the scripts, the checklists, and everything for you to be able to survive and thrive in this marketplace. It will be always. It always has been ever changing. Okay, but on Monday we covered CMAs, as well as listing agreements. Um, it's so important that the listing agent take on a listing and be on point as far as price is concerned. What's going on in the marketplace. I should feed. Take on the business, know how to do a good CMA that would enable that property to sell quickly. And then on Tuesday, we moved into the contract specific to FHA. Next week, I'm going to do VA. The following, I'm going to do conventional. The following, I'm going to do USDA. And then I might even throw on a non-QM loan for investor and such. Wednesday, I did cover buyer's representation in detail as far as the short form, like when you meet somebody at an open house, the long form when you have decided to transition from the short form to the long form and take on that person as a client. Because like I said, one of the things that I talk about is we want to negotiate from a position of strength, not weakness. And you need to determine highest and best use of your time, money, and resources. And like an attorney, a financial advisor, not everybody needs to have access to you, and not everybody will have the privilege to work with you. You will need to be able to dictate who you want to take on as clients based on their ability, to compensate you if they want to see inventory where compensation is not being offered. Okay. And then yesterday, Thursday, what I ended up covering was the financing piece. No, I don't want you to become loan officers unless you want to. I'm all about education and insurance, mortgage, um, complements real estate. So if you know more than other people, guys, you will always do better in life. Because if you're the smart, my job is to get you your skill level and knowledge, education, entrepreneur skills to a higher level. But no doubt about it, guys, if you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room, right? Okay. And once again, for you guys continuing to grow and enrich yourself, and there's always classes being offered, at different title companies, online, by mortgage companies, as well as here, in our office. Because at the end of the day, there's a lot of money at stake here, guys. It's your livelihood and stuff. And if you take great pride in what you do because you know how to do it, it will all turn into dollars and cents for you. You'll live that life and accomplish your life goals and dreams, and take your families on vacation and invest money and grow generational wealth and such. So yesterday was about the financing and your responsibility to know how to strategically uh, package a contract for the benefit of your buyer, if you're on the buying side, to be able to ensure that they make it to the table with the least amount of money based on market conditions, right? Because right now the economy is not doing well. So it's common to see price reductions, full concessions for the buyer to cover prepaids, closing costs, buy downs, as well as your compensation. Okay. Um, and at the end of the day, for folks that have decided to get into the race or have to transition their families, to the other side of town, to the other side of the state, or out of the country, or once again, there's a need. They need to sell, and you're bringing a buyer that wants to buy, right? Because once again, who doesn't want a 2 or 3? But what's on the table is a 6, 7, or 8. Okay, depending on your credit score and your down payment, the program, and such. I mean, there's a number of variables. Some restrictions may apply, right, specific to your case. So, no doubt about it. You need to know more. You need to step it up uh, you know, and ensure that you're going to be able to deal with a prospect, a consumer that you need to turn into a client on the buying side or even on the listing side. Okay. So today I'm going to cover intermediary. It's my favorite subject. I get to spend a lot of time with a lot of you guys on the phone about intermediary. I love it. It's my favorite subject, believe it or not. Okay, because there's a compliance piece, and of course there's agency involved. Did you create a client relationship, or did you treat them as a prospect? Did you not cross that line and such? And once again, right now the market's a little bit sluggish. I know a lot of you guys are doing open houses, are investing a lot of time trying to generate a potential lead, right? So what ends up happening is that I'm going to cover a lot of things, okay, but the main topic is intermediary today and how that impacts your business. Okay. So it all starts with the listing agent, right? And on Monday, we talked about negotiating from a position of strength. Okay. So, like I said, a listing agent cannot take on a listing in this office or in any brokerage where there's at least 3 people. For intermediary to take place, there must be at least 3 people at that brokerage. The broker is in the center, but then you have to have 2 agents by appointment to be able to do intermediary. You could do it without appointment, but in the event that you need that second person, you do need at least 2 agents and the broker, 3 people to be in compliance with the state of Texas with TREC as it pertains to intermediary, should the buyer or the seller need an assignment of an agent. In our office, we have 200 agents. Okay. So no agent in our office will ever take on a listing or is advised to take on a listing because, number one, if you do not take a listing on for full compensation or reasonable compensation where it would propel somebody to bring you a qualified buyer, okay, the listing agent needs to not only mobilize our 200 agents that are in this office, but the 14,000 agents that happen to be your business associates. You know them through the years, you're involved in transactions with them through the years. Some of them you like, they're nice, kind, gentle, and respectful. And then you get the other spectrum of folks where they're grumpy. They're not very nice. They're foul even. Once again, it's the business. It's sales, and everybody has a different style, and not everybody has the same background. But at the end of the day, if you have a listing and you represent the seller, your job is to market to buyers agents in this office and the rest of the other agents that are part of the San Antonio Board of Realtor and the surrounding areas. Okay, so by not taking on a listing with full compensation, you limit yourself, because then all of a sudden, in our case, at a small office, it could be two agents. But in this office, the probability that somebody from our office might already be working with a cash buyer, or somebody that, has already sold their house in California, they're relocating here, they're fully approved, they've already verified income, assets, and credit, they have automated approval. All they need is the subject property, to be able to wrap it up in 15 or 20 days. Okay, so a listing agent would be doing themselves a horrible injustice by not taking on a listing. It would be detrimental to the seller, because then the seller wouldn't be able to accomplish what they needed to. Because no doubt about it, guys, if the seller's going to make the buyer pay for the compensation, you're going to eliminate 75% of the prospects. So if 10 people were going to show up, you've just eliminated 7 or 8 of them. Only 2 people might buy it. And now those 2 people need to like it. Right? Why would you want to put yourself in that predicament when you're the seller? If the seller understands that, trust me, guys, okay, fine, I'll pay the compensation just because I need to report to California or Washington, D.C. or New York, because I'm needing to take that more lucrative, higher paying job. Paying a compensation is not an expense, guys. It's an investment. It's already included in the price. It's an investment for a seller to pay, attract, and market to a buyer's agent that could potentially help them transition to wherever they're going. Okay, and we have covered a lot of scripts on how to combat objections and everything, and I'll have those scripts written for you guys through the weekend, as far as these are the things you need to tell the buyers, and these are the things that you need to tell the sellers. And then you need to develop your own style of how you're going to explain those things and those concepts. Okay, I know that in the ABR class that's being advocated by a NAR at the national level, they're paying for the class for you guys. It's free at Sabor, it's free at Champions, it's free online. We have wonderful instructors nationwide trying to teach it, to try to get you guys in compliance. But at the end of the day, no doubt about it, what ends up happening is that they're teaching that the listing agent controls the gold. Well, maybe they controlled it in 2022, but right now, who controls the gold? If a seller wants to sell and you're not paying compensation, what's going on in this marketplace right now, guys, is builders are doing price reductions. They're paying closing costs, prepaids, buy downs, guaranteeing a 3.9, a 4.9. The existing market can't compete with that. There's not enough meat on the bones for a seller to compete with a builder and offer all of that. And incidentally, the realtor's being paid 4, 5, and 6, 7% compensation, in addition to all the things that they're doing for the buyer. Oh, and I think I failed to mention sprinkler system, washer, dryer, refrigerator. The list goes on and on and on. Once again, it is your responsibility, guys, to know your marketplace. If you guys don't know what's going on in the builder community, you need to get in your cars and walk through homes, do YouTube videos, do lives, and try to attract buyers for yourself so that way you can be involved in real estate transactions. You staying at home or working at home and not getting dressed and coming to the office doesn't make you any money. Okay. So, but at the end of the day, just know this: it is the listing agent's responsibility to be able to sell the fact or explain the fact that in this marketplace, you need to welcome and encourage buyer's agency at full commission, and throw on a bonus if you need to. And the market's quirky, guys. You could have the property listed correctly, but because the market's deteriorating, I mean, it happens in retail, whether it's clothes. I mean, it starts real high, and then towards the end of the season, they're like discounting that stuff 30 and 50%, right? Well, it happens to the bread at HEB. It's nice and warm at 8 in the morning. At 6 o'clock, they can't give it away because it's hard. You have to adjust the price. If the property's been sitting for 7 or 10 days, you don't have any walkthroughs, any interest, no offers, you constantly have to reassess your CMA and also have those discussions with your seller. I'm sorry, Mr. Seller, but we don't have any interest in your property because there's too many substitutions out there. Why would they buy a 10, 20, 30-year-old home when, they could go buy a brand new home that has warranties, the builder's giving them a lower rate so that way that payment's where it needs to be at, and then they're throwing in the washer, dryer, refrigerator, and they're compensating the realtor handsomely. So once again, you have to have, be able to explain those comparisons to a seller so that way that seller goes, well, you're right. I see it. Market conditions aren't the best, and I still need to sell. If you need to sell, we need to be aggressive. Because when you guys call me on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, or through the week at any given day, and you're not getting the activity that you need, the three things that I will always recommend that you guys do is, number one, there's not anything that the price reduction downward will not cure. Doesn't matter size, age, condition. You bring that price down, you will adjust it somewhere to the point where a buyer will get motivated to submit an offer. Okay? There's not anything that can't be fixed by price. It could be a dump, but lower it $50,000 and trust me, okay, you'll have multiple offers. Okay? So once again, your job and your responsibility is to market this property not only to people in our office, but to the 14,000 other realtors that are in this office. So you having that compensation, full compensation, and actually offering a bonus, price reduction, bonus to the agent, to the buyer's agent, and then of course maximum concessions. That's the reason you need to know about the financing. Okay, well, conventional it's 3 if they're putting 3 or 5% down. If they put 20, it's 6 on a conventional side, and that's plus compensation. Okay, VA 4%, USDA 6, FHA 6. Well, if your property isn't moving, you need to do a combination of 3. Don't just do $20,000 just to do $20,000. Split it up. Price reduction, full concessions, and hey, let's amend our listing agreement. We're going to amend it downward, but then I'm also going to increase the compensation upward. Okay? Because trust me, guys, we're not supposed to, whatever they teach you at school is one thing, but the reality of it is that right now everybody's being impacted by inflation. Realtors are impacted by inflation. You're doing a little bit less volume because your phone isn't ringing off the hook. You have to actually go get your client and be prospecting and lead generating constantly, whatever your preferred method is. Okay, your sphere of influence is not enough right now. You need to be doing all sorts of things, to be working with a consistent amount of people, for you guys to be profitable, to meet, to be profitable month to month, right? So what ends up happening is this, guys, is that at the end of the day, if you're compensated, full compensation 3%, the probability that you'll have walkthroughs is very high. You lower that compensation as a listing agent to 2.5, trust me, even before these changes happen, if you're somewhere where they're charging you 30 and 40% split, that half a point becomes crucial. On a $400,000, guys, half a point is $2,000. Right? That's your mortgage payment. That's your car payment. That's your all cost of doing business fees for the entire year. Right? So you guys aren't dumb. The reality of it is obviously you need to put your client's interest first above your own. But now you get to control that conversation. Mr. Buyer, okay, things have changed. I need you to sign a couple forms for me. Obviously, information about brokerage services that dictates who I represent in the transaction, the seller, the buyer, or I could do intermediary. Okay. However, I do want to let you know that there is a chance that you might pay part of my compensation. So the question is, in the event that a compensation is not being offered by the listing agent or the seller, okay, and not cooperating and not sharing it or whatever, Do you still want me to expose you to those properties? Or is that an option for you? Can you compensate me in the event that the seller is not offering compensation or the listing brokerage is not offering to share compensation? If the answer is no, it's okay. You're dictating how you're going to conduct business. It's your business, guys. You're a business within a business. That you have all the resources that we offer here is another thing. Okay, but at the end of the day, alrighty. Well, no, the buyer needs down payment assistance, help with closing costs. They can't take money out of their 401k because they work for the state or whatever. So it's okay. Okay, Mr. Buyer, in that case, I will expose you to properties where compensation is being covered by the builder or the seller. Okay, so for example, there might be 10 properties in any given community. There might be one or two that doesn't pay compensation. I will not expose you to those two properties. I will only expose you to the ones where the seller has already agreed to pay for my compensation. Okay. So those two houses, guys, don't just send the list. At that moment, they're telling you that them paying you is not even an option. So those properties cannot be on your list because you're going to put yourself in a situation. I told you that I couldn't pay the compensation. Why did you expose it to me? I'm in love with it. And now you get to work for free. You get to work for free because you didn't do your job, because you're the market expert. You already did your buyer's orientation to set expectations accordingly. You reviewed the short form or the long form as to compensation, and you chose not to decipher the list to meet the criteria that was required for you to conduct business with them. That you get to do it for free because you didn't decipher the list. It's on you. Okay. But at the end of the day, just know this: like when you're doing your sales presentation or whatever. Okay, I've been doing this for a while. So what ends up happening is that I'd like to help you. Just know this: I'm going to take you on as a client. Let's see, today at this open house, or I'll take you on as a client for a week and see if we're a good fit, to see if we can even work with one another. But you have my full commitment that I'm going to try to get you the best opportunity possible. Obviously, I'm going to try to secure the best price, get all your closing costs, as well as I'll try to secure the compensation first from the seller or the builder or whatever. But just know this: compensation comes in this order: from the seller, number one; number two, the builder; number three, closing costs. So that's the reason you need to know what max concessions are, right? As well as, and then the fourth, it comes from their pocket. At that moment, you're going to have to make the decision. Okay, well, I found them the house of their dream, but the builder's only paying 2%. That builder. Or it's the for sale by owner, or that other realtor that couldn't secure full compensation for whoever was bringing the qualified buyer, right? Is only offered 2.5. That difference you will need to either get it in concessions, closing cost assistance, right? Or get it from them, or if not, you're going to have to make that business decision of waiving that 0.5 point, because once again, you did your very best, to get that compensation from the 3 other sources, but it wasn't an option. Okay, so once again, I mean, let's go back to the intermediary. You guys should have a contract that was emailed to you. For you guys that are present, you guys have our subject property in our contract, as well as we're specifically addressing intermediary today, which means that the listing would need to be from our office, number one. Number two, when the listing agent took on the business, it is always a requirement. You would be doing yourself and the seller a horrible injustice by not checking off intermediary services. Because if you check off or they check off no intermediary, that means that another buyer's agent from this office will not get compensated. You would have to send that buyer to another brokerage. Okay. Conversely, on your short form buyer's representation form and your long form representation form, the buyer must agree to intermediary. Well, if you met them at an open house, you're probably at one of our listings, because we don't allow other agents from other brokerages to do open houses on our listings. Every agent doing an open house should be from our firm to protect the client's interest, right? And then that never turns out well, guys. When other brokers are trying to do open houses and do stuff on your listing, is their intent is not a good one. Because I have seen it where all of a sudden they run into the seller and then they start burning the listing agent, saying, "Oh, well, I'm the one doing open houses. Your listing agent's doing something else, but I'm the one trying to push your house and bring you a buyer." And I've seen it where they cancel the listing with our firm, and then here it is, another firm that gets to step in as the listing company. So don't allow agents from other companies to do your open houses and market your properties, because now with the compensation thing, it's a very sensitive issue, because unless you're with this firm, you shouldn't be talking about the compensation, or you might not know what the compensation is for our firm or for another firm. You can disclose compensation for our listings, which will be available to you guys on our website, as well as we'll have a system in place for you, so in the event that you're like on phone duty, for those of you guys that come into the office and stuff. But either way, if the listing agent took on the listing, in this office, everybody takes on a listing with intermediary, so that way these 200 other agents can bring a buyer. You're mobilizing your team, you're increasing your value proposition. Why wouldn't you want to list with us? There's 200 agents in this office, right? And then all of those agents could do open houses and boost your property on social media and such, right? And do videos and reels and all of that other stuff, right? We're part of the same team in efforts to try to help the seller get them to their next destination, okay? But at the same time, that agent needs to collect full compensation, okay? So, so intermediary involves two people from this office or one person from this office without appointments, okay? And there's a lot of agents in our office that do intermediary with and without appointment. And then there's a lot of folks that won't do both sides. There are a lot of folks that when they do it, they'll bring in another agent, or there are some people that would just flat out just give it to somebody else, because they don't want to do both sides, okay? Now, it depends on the scenario. There's a lot of investors in the marketplace, guys. And you have an investor that will tell you, "I don't need an agent." And they'll tell you, "What I need you to do is lower your commission." Well, that's not a discussion that they need to have with you. Okay? Especially if they're telling you that they don't want to sign any paperwork. Well, they're not your client. Okay? The exclusive right to list was signed with the listing agent. And if there's full compensation there, they can say whatever they want. But if they're a prospect and they tell you, "Hey, I want to lower the price $10,000. I'll pay my own title. I'll pay my own survey. I want to close in 7 days." They're not your client. They're telling you what to do. You're not providing advice and opinion, right? Right. So you can do both sides. But then at that moment, you have to make the decision to say, do I want to provide them advice and opinion? You don't have to, because they're an investor, right? They're already telling you they don't need your advice and opinion. And then they don't want to sign any paperwork. And then at that moment, you can just check off, "I represent the seller alone," if they don't want anything from you. But then you might get that neighbor across the street that tells you, that they want to submit an offer. You have to be just real careful. When do you cross the line? When you're at an open house, you want people to like you, and you want to give information and knowledge, and these are the schools, and this is the square footage. You remember, guys, our occupational code states that you will treat people fair and honestly, whether they're your client or not. You telling them what school district it is and what square footage it is, all of that is public knowledge. You pass the line the moment that you start to give advice and opinion and you start to get too wordy, trying to figure out who they are and where they were born and to see if you have something in common with them. Because then all of a sudden, if you guys use the same hair salon and know the same people, they can you can create an agency relationship by them even thinking that they're your friend. Oh, well, she's my friend. We use the same hair, nail tech, whatever, and we know the same people. We went to the same high school, whatever. They know my brother, sister, cousin, da 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 da. So don't do it. Keep it professional. Be very strategic. Okay, keep it professional until you figure out what's going on. Now, if you're thinking you're going to lose the client, and then all of a sudden, you really need to put on the salesmanship and do what you can to tell them, hey, I'm going to do all of this for you. This is where I'm from. This is how I do business. Those kinds of things. And if you feel that you need to pass the line to create a client relationship, sure, go ahead and do it. But at the end of the day, if we have an exclusive right to list that states that the seller agrees to intermediary. It mobilizes 200 people here. On your short form and long form, intermediary must always be checked off that they agree to it. Okay? Because if they're already at your open house, hey, I'll let you know if we get any listings in the area and everything. We always have, right now we have 223 listings, guys. There's always somebody taking on a listing. Somebody doing something. You want to sell that value, right? I have access to the inventory. But not only do you have access to the inventory in our office, but you have access to the inventory of all of the San Antonio Board of Realtors in the surrounding counties. Furthermore, I spent thousands of dollars, guys, so that way you have Houston, Corpus, Dallas, Fort Worth, Austin, New Braunfels, Kerrville, Fredericksburg, El Paso, Del Rio, Eagle Pass, and Laredo, McAllen, and we're getting ready to add South Padre Island because somebody's getting ready to take on a $1 million listing, in South Padre Island. Okay, if it's going to make you money, guys, we have resources for you. Okay, so once again, you have the abundance of inventory. So hey, you want to secure the relationship, make him your client if you need to, and once again, you have to make him your client because once again, you either represent the seller or you represent the buyer. There's no middle ground. You have to have paperwork in place. Which incidentally, guys, I'm going to go ahead and tell you this right now. We're going to have to change business. We're going to have to change our business plans and our business strategy because we are now required to monitor you to ensure that you do have the proper paperwork in place. We have been requiring that all of your paperwork be turned in 10 days before your closing for your CDA and such. And now the requirement is that you have to turn in your paperwork within 10 days of going under contract or taking on the listing. Okay, we're having to switch it because now, you can't, there's going to be too many revisions and too many changes within 10 days of closing. And we're trying to avoid, not being in compliance. So we're needing to do it up front rather than at the very end. Okay. There would have to be an exception done because in reality, when you're negotiating that contract, you already have the buyer's rep agreement in place, as well as with the compensation that they've agreed to pay. Okay. So like I said, you will need your compensation on the contract must match the contract. I'm sorry, your buyer's rep agreement. Your buyer's rep agreement, whether you're the short form or the long form, must match your executed contract. Okay? Because you will not be able to change that contract at the closing table. Okay? So if the builder, that's the reason you need to attend that class where I'm talking about if you do existing market, put your 3 or 4%, put your retainer fee or transaction fee and special provisions, or bulk it in together in 4.5, up to 4.5, right? if you're in the existing market. If you're in the new home construction, I recommend you do up to 7 or 8%. And I've already had that discussion of why. Because you don't know if you're going to go get them a spec home that you're going to close in 3 weeks or within the month, within 30 days, or you're going to go look for land. You're going to help them with the well, with the septic, with the utilities. You're going to go to 4, 5, 6 different custom home builders, and you're going to be involved in that transaction for 2 years of your life. Okay? Because I have done it, guys. I was involved, I want to say 14 years ago with this lady that had a crazy budget. We started at 4 and we ended up like at 800,000. It ended up being a custom home. To find the land, it took months. To find the right builder, it took months. It took 2 years to build that house, guys. Furthermore, she fired 3 general contractors. And the day of closing, she filed a lawsuit and included me in it. I mean, we were exonerated from it because, I wasn't involved in the construction side. I secured the land. She chose her contractor, and at the end of the day, I helped her where I could, but I wasn't involved in the quality of construction because, once again, I wasn't a builder back then, or I'm not a builder. Okay, so once again, at the end of the day, 2 years of my life on that transaction. Okay, so once again, in construction, go ahead and put up to 8%, not knowing if it's going to be a spec or 2 years of your life. So you put value on your time. That commission turned into minimum wage. It was a lot of hours. But anyways, at the end of the day, let's go ahead and go to I'm not sure if this form is going to stay, but if you will go to page 10 of 11, where it has the agents that are on transaction here. So broker's information, because it's one of our listings. Because if you look at this property, it actually is one of our listings internally in our office. So we have Christina Segovia as one of the agents in our office, her information, our address. The second agent, Saida Martinez, also with our office at the same address. The buyer and the seller have to be conscious that both agents are from this office. They've already agreed to intermediary through the short form, long form buyer's rep agreement, as well as initially through the exclusive right to list, reflecting that could be a possibility, and the seller was agreeing to intermediary. Furthermore, guys, if you notice the compensation, it says 3% plus 2K bonus. Okay, at the very bottom of page 10 of 11, where the brokers are mentioned. Okay, so if your buyer's rep agreement only says 3%, and the bonus is being offered either by a seller or a builder, you need to revise. There is an amendment to the buyer's rep agreement, whether you're using the short form or the long form. There is an amendment that you must increase the compensation to include the 2K. So if you use the long form and go up to 4 or 5% on existing, or up to 8% if you're in construction, right? You don't have to worry about it. It's already included. Okay, because it's up to, right, 7% or 8%. It's already included. Okay, if you put up to 4 or 5% on existing, up to 7 or 8% on new construction, it's already included. You don't. But if you only have 3% and there's a $2,000 bonus, you need to ensure that you change your buyer's rep agreement. Okay, that's the reason we're going to have to require for you guys to turn in your compliance package within 10 days of going under contract, because we're needing to double check that your buyer's representation agreement is a mirror of the compensation that will be billed and collected at title. Because guys, you can't collect more compensation than what the buyer already agreed to pay you. Because yes, there is a chance that the buyer will pay your compensation, but if they only agree to pay you 3, they need to agree for you to get paid that bonus. That's the reason you have to have those compensation agreements that say, hey, I'm going to try to collect your compensation. I'm going to go ahead and put 4, but if I only can collect 3, I'll waive that 1%. Or hey, if the builder's only offering 4, 5, and 6, well, I'll waive that 2%. But like I said, I don't know if I'm going to be invested 1 day or 2 years of my life. So this is worst case scenario, okay? And just to ensure that I'm in compliance and I don't have to double back and do double work. Okay, but if your paperwork says 3 and there's a $2,000 bonus or 2 more percentage points, you need to amend your buyer's rep agreement immediately as part of your negotiations. Because if you guys will not be allowed to change this on the buyer the day of closing. And then there is a very strong possibility, guys, and we're already seeing it. Even on rentals, the brokers are asking for a buyer's rep agreement, buyer tenant representation agreement. If you want to get paid $2,000 to bring a qualified tenant to an apartment complex, they're asking for your buyer's representation agreement because that's a way for them not to pay you because they get it. Now it's the law nationwide. You cannot go show a home without having your information about brokerage services and your buyer's representation fully executed by the buyer. Because whether it's the apartment complex, the builder, the seller paying the compensation, it's the fact that you can even get them in your car or meet them at the property. You either represent the seller or the apartment complex or the builder, or you represent the tenant or you represent the buyer. This is no more free willy, guys. You have to have your paperwork in place prior to. And how to explain that paperwork. I mean, I'll be offering this coaching and this training through August 17th. You need to hear it 20 times if you need to. And I'm going to be here. We're going to be here as a team to help you and get through these challenges. Okay. And then I'm also going to type up the scripts so that way you can repeat them and, be in the shower or take your walks or do whatever you need to. That way it becomes second nature for you guys. You think I was going to wait till August 17th to do all of this? Okay. So once again, I'm not sure if this bottom will stay into the future. They left it for right now, outlining what the compensation is going to be. But my understanding is that it will need to be removed. So even though they just made the revision on June 24th, I believe, there's a very good chance by August 17th that Trek and TAR and nationwide, any reference to compensation on the actual contract will be removed. Because now there's language in the contract that says other agreements are already in place prior to this contract, which means that the seller's agent had an exclusive right to list, the compensation's outlined there. And with you guys, when you met them for the first time, your compensation was outlined the day you met them at the open house or when they came into the office to do your buyer's orientation, prior to you even walking through a home. Okay, I want to double back real quick and mention when you're talking to a buyer and talking about the compensation on whether if they would want you to expose them to property. Mr. Buyer, what you're telling me is that you don't have any money or you're cash poor. So what you're telling me here is that you do not want me to expose you to properties where you will be directly responsible for my compensation. Is that correct? Yes, I don't. Okay, so I'm only going to show you property where the seller or the builder is offering compensation. Are we clear? Yes, we are. Okay. No mention of zip code, school district, nothing. You haven't even talked about real estate, guys. You dictating how you're going to conduct business has already been established before you expose them to the inventory. So you're not redlining, you're not steering, okay? You're deciding like an attorney does. Hey, I'm going to hear your case. Let me see if I can win it. Let me see what the variables are and how much time it's going to take, right? And I will decide if I'm going to take you on as a client, right? And it's going to cost you this, right? An attorney does it. A financial planner does it. Oh, no, you don't make enough money. You don't have enough money. I'm not going to make any money. Once again, an attorney and a doctor, I mean, anybody that's a professional that works commission or sales or self-employed has the right to dictate if they want to take you on as a client. Okay. This is the only profession in the world, or at least here it is here in the United States, where prior to this happening, and all of this is good, guys, it really is, because what it is, we're going to move away from the direction of being that profession that you don't know if you're going to be involved with the client for a week, a month, or 2 years, where it's still subject to you not being compensated, whether you have an active listing or you're building a custom home, da 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 da. Okay, this is the only profession where we don't collect our money up front, and that needs to change. And that's the reason. Another thing, your retainer fees. If somebody's coming in from out of the state and out of the country, we are okay you guys collecting a retainer fee. Because if that out of town person thinks that you're some glorified tour guide, you're not. You're not. You're having to put your family's events on hold, other clients, and they need to know that there's liquidated damages involved. Hey, Mr. Buyer, I'll greet you at the airport and I'll wine you and dine you all weekend and everything. But once again, I'm putting my family as well as other clients aside, and I'm going to devote all of my time to you. So it is my policy, or it's my company policy, that if you're an out of town buyer, that I collect a retainer fee of $1,500, $2,500, whatever you guys want to collect. Because if they're coming in to buy $1 million home, $2,500 and $5,000 is in a. If you don't charge any money, they're going to think that you don't value your time. They won't respect you. Okay, guys. So once again, collect those retainer fees, because nobody puts anything aside without being compensated. Because it's not only your time, family time, your miles on your car in 100-degree weather. Are you kidding me? Don't do that to yourself. Negotiate from a position of strength, because we not only talk about real estate, mortgage, and insurance, and all of the things that I talk about here to ensure that you guys are well-rounded and exceptional agents. We talk about entrepreneurial skills. Okay, be the professional. Collect that retainer fee. Trust me, if they respect you, they'll pay it. If they really have every intention, hey, Mr. Buyer from Mexico, from Australia, or from California or New York or wherever, from Washington or whatever, hey, I'm going to collect the retainer fee. In the event that you don't buy anything, I get to keep the retainer fee. However, if you do buy something, I'll be more than happy to credit to you at closing. There's no risk, like earnest money, right? You have every intention of buying, right? Well, then it's 100% guarantee that you're going to get it back, right? Collect. It solidifies the relationship. I'm taking you on as a client. Great. I'm going to take you on as a client. I need you to sign this paperwork for me and get with Mr. Clint, and he'll send out an invoice, and we'll send out a square, and then we'll collect that money on your behalf. Okay, because remember, guys, no doubt about it, stay in compliance. You cannot collect money on behalf of the brokerage. Money cannot be Venmoed or Cash App into your account, or checks be written out to your name. That's considered commingling of monies. All monies need to come through the brokerage. We'll receipt it in and then cut it out to you. That way you guys are 100% in compliance. Okay, so once again, you guys have a team here of people that we're already thinking about ways to keep you in business. I can guarantee these aren't things that they're talking about other brokerages. I can guarantee you. So once again, guys, let's go back to the form. I don't know if this compensation is going to be on this page. I think it will change by August 17th, but no doubt about it. Intermediary notice, relationship notice. It has to clearly identify if it'll be with appointments or without appointments. Okay. And I will allow you to dictate based on your comfort level if you have the experience to handle them, if you're dealing with an investor, and then I'm going to advise you, hey, do both sides. I mean, the investor doesn't need anything from you, In that case, well, don't treat him even as a client. He's a prospect, because you already work for the seller. You'd just be checking you represent the seller. But if you cross that line and they feel that you gave him advice and opinion, well, then disclose intermediary. okay? And then, especially if you're gonna, if they need help with arranging financing and they want to do a home inspection, forget about the investor. Let's talk about a regular person. Let's say they need help arranging financing, home inspections, home service plans. You know, you're going to select the title company. You're going to take care of everything from beginning to end. You can disclose intermediary. Remember, guys, be fair and honest. You're not allowed to divulge confidential information on the seller side because you know the seller, or somebody in this office knows the seller, right? Because it's our listing. Okay. And then the other thing is that the buyer, treat them fair and honestly. You cannot tell the buyer that the seller needs to net X and that they're going through a divorce or they're going through a hardship. Okay. You can't do those kinds of things. Conversely, you can't divulge any information about the buyer that they just won the lottery, you know, or anything. I'd recommend that personal details not be disclosed. I'm not a fan of the buyer and the seller meeting one another. On very few occasions, that has turned out well. Okay, I won't even show property. I had a episode one time where the seller was there present. It's when I started my career, like in 2001 or two. Um, the single mom with their two kids asked, "Is the stove staying?" And the seller, who was some grumpy old man, said, "No, it's not freaking staying." And he was vulgar and mean, and we jetted out of there. I'm like, that will never happen to me ever again. When the seller is in the house, I have told sellers, I'm so sorry. I have a personal policy that I do not show property if the seller is inside the house. You could go take a walk or whatever. You can go outside, but you're not allowed to talk to my client. I'd rather you actually not be here. I'll come back. I'll reschedule. It's okay, because it's my fiduciary duty to protect my client and their well-being. They didn't deserve that. She was in tears, so were her kids, because the guy was just flat out ugly, right? Remember, guys, take care of that old car. Obedience, liability, and disclosure. Care, accountability, and responsibility. Okay? Take care of the environment. Control the environment. I mean, I know that there's other brokers that don't want you to arrange financing and insurance and home inspectors. No, no. If you've been in this business long enough and you've seen 3 or 5 home inspectors, you know, refer them to 1, 2, 3, or 4, or 5 inspectors. You don't have to give them a list with 100 inspectors. You don't know if those people just got a license, that they don't know anything. Same thing with lenders. Remember, guys, your lender's part of your team. And let's talk about that, guys, also, about now that we're talking about relationships and divulging information. You can ask a lot of questions. I will always back you up. I have taken a lot of calls, guys, you know, where I have had lenders upset, sellers upset, listing agents upset, because our agents are smart agents. We have experienced agents here. You know, you can ask whatever question you need to. I mean, as long as they're not giving you specific details. Oh yeah, they have $200,000 at Merrill Lynch, you know, or hey, they have a 548 credit score. Okay, you're not asking for those details. Do they have income, assets, credit? Is there anything on the file that you think would not allow this to close? Do they have to sell a car? Do they have to get divorced? Did they co-sign on an RV? I mean, is there anything that you can tell me? You know, because we have 20 other offers. Okay, or hey, I'm needing to determine if I'm going to take them on as a client. On a scale of 1 to 10, what is the probability that they're going to close? Anywhere where they divulge how much money they had in the bank and at what account, right? None of that, right? So ask all the questions you need to the point of securing that, where you ask enough questions where you feel comfortable taking that offer, or, you know, knowing from the loan officer that they're a good candidate. Because like I said, if somebody that you're working with won't divulge information to you without giving specifics and hurting, I mean, because once again, loan officers have fiduciary duties as well. And we not only have a state license, guys, we have a federal license. And we all go through a federal background check. But trust me, guys, when the meltdown happened in, you know, in those years, 2006, 7, or 8, or 9, if you guys think that you guys are going through changes, these are the first changes you guys are seeing. Our industry changed completely on the mortgage side, and they were horrible. it was a mess because realtors were kicking us in the ribs. I mean, it was very challenging, nerve-wracking. I mean, but we got through it. They went through like 3 or 4 different series of changes at a national level to get us to what we now call the loan estimate, which used to be called the good faith estimate and the truth in lending, and now it's called the loan estimate and the closing disclosure. Okay, you have no idea if you're in the real estate community and you weren't around during those 10 years, it was a nightmare. Everybody in the world blamed the mortgage industry. Okay. So once again, now we have to adapt to real estate changes. They're not going to be too bad, guys, especially if you negotiate from a position of strength. You know what to say and how to say it. And you have this perspective of, hey, let's make this a win-win-win, or hey, I need to be strategic to make sure I don't waste my time. You need to step it up and become a better agent and ask more questions. Okay. So at the end of the day, your loan officer is a key ingredient to your team. You need to know the max concessions. You need to know the loan program. You need to know if FHA and conventional are an option or VA and conventional are an option, not knowing if they will accept a government loan, especially when the market decides to shift in the future. Because 2 years ago, had this been going on, guys, it would have been very concerning because the seller didn't need us because the market got crazy after COVID. Inventory was flying off the market. New home builders, we had those builders, 1 or 2 or 3 of them that were paying 0.5, 1% max compensation for all that work, whether it was a 30-day transaction or a 6-month transaction. It was horrible, right? The builder and the sellers didn't need us. Right now, because the economy is going through horrible times and the inflation is impacting everybody, okay? Rates are higher. The monthly payments are higher for a first-time home buyer or even a second or a third-time buyer. People are, if I have a 2.875 at my house, in my home, why would I go in the marketplace and secure a 6 or a 7 or an 8? My housing payment's going to double. And that's the reason people aren't listing and they're not buying, because the rates are too high, because they're already used to that 2.875, right? Or 3. But when the rates start to shift downward, the market's going to pick up. Okay. But by that time, hopefully in 2025, at the middle part or the end of 2025, we will have adjusted by then. Okay. Because you're going to be real good. You want to be successful in life? Go work as a bill collector in collections. And that's what we're going to become, is collectors, or professionals. Hey, I'm so sorry. I just don't work that price point. Or, hey, I mean, if you're not going to prepay me my compensation, I'm so sorry. I have 10 other clients, that I work with that are going to compensate me. Why would I mean, once again, you might need to find another agent. You're going to be turning people away, guys, because there's a lot of people in this business. That 1.8 million realtors will turn into less than 1 million in the next 12 months. And these 14,000 realtors, I want to say that we're going to dip under 10,000 realtors easily. Okay. They don't want to learn. They don't want to work. Right? But we do. We take it serious and we're the professionals. And people, conversely, people will know that you did all the right things to be able to survive. They will continue to refer you to their friends and their family. You will have established yourself as a seasoned, experienced person because you have the knowledge, the skills, the education, the backing. You have a team of people here. Guys, PRG Platinum offers what? We're more than just a real estate brokerage. First and foremost, we give you opportunities with 100% financing. 100% plans. We have an abundance of 100% plans to ensure that you guys stay profitable. We're not taking 30 and 40% of your money. On the contrary, we try to give you more resources, include them in, so that way you guys can go out and, and do well and prosper and thrive. There's a lot of brokers that are working from home because they can't afford an office, which I can't understand really, because at the end of the day, if you're in real estate and you don't own the real estate, you're in the wrong business. You can't sell real estate and not be a homeowner, in my opinion, or sell that dream. Okay, but nonetheless, you guys have awesome staff from beginning to end. Alejandra, Clint, Tina, Keith, Saida, Melissa, Nancy, Augie. We have great people here, guys, backing you up. We have an in-house mortgage company, insurance company. There's more than 20 notaries in this office. There's nothing that we can't do, all things real estate, okay? So once again, negotiate from a position of strength, and sell value, get ready, get prepared, and it will all fall in place for you guys. So when you guys have an intermediary situation or you think you're going to create one, you need to call me. That is the call that I take the most because I want to make sure that you guys are in compliance. And it's also the most lucrative for you guys. If it's your listing and you did both sides, you just had a great day. We had an agent here recently that closed on her $1.5 million listing, and she did both sides. Okay, that compensation was $45,000 on this $1.5 million home. So I'm a fan of intermediary. I want to give you an opportunity to be profitable and do both sides if the opportunity lends itself. Okay. So thank you guys for joining me and sticking it out with me this week. We will continue into next week for the next couple of weeks, and then I'm going to actually head on to a cruise, the last week in July. So just to get my thoughts together, and then we'll pick it up for 2 more weeks as we approach that August 17th date. So if you guys have a friend or a family member or somebody that's struggling at a different brokerage, I feel like it's our responsibility to teach and coach other folks at different offices because they might not have the support that they need over there. But my fear is that you're going to be involved in a real estate transaction with them and they're not going to know. They need to hear that we as realtors have the power to be able to dictate and take care of. Because it takes an army, guys, to raise a kid. It takes an army to close a real estate transaction. You can't win the war if half the army isn't eating, right? It's a team effort. The real estate community needs to get together and have the same philosophy rather than, throw a piece of meat and each one fends for themselves. That's not what we want to do, or that's not the philosophy that I want to take. Let's be the professionals, mutual respect, love and respect from one another and for our profession. And let's fight for it. Okay. All righty, guys. Have a good weekend.